thank you for joining in. I have the pleasure of moderating the first panel of the day, and I hope that I can bring the point up to make sure that you all have a good rest of your day. Just to make sure, how much time do we have, Bilkis? So let me start by posing a question to the audience. I'm going to take names of a few organizations: Deloitte, Google, TikTok, and Airbnb. Apart from all the four of them being big organizations, what do you think is one common thing between all of them? The answer to what I had originally scoped to ask was very similar to what you all are meaning to say. And the only thing common between them is they appointed a role called a Chief Happiness Officer recently. And that is such a huge change in the way that we have seen roles emerge in organizations. So if any of you are worried that AI is going to take up our jobs, you can know that these are some of the new jobs that are getting emerged in our workplaces. So with this, I'm happy to introduce the topic of today, which is fostering a positive culture and engagement for happier organizations. And I have an esteemed panel members who are sitting besides me. So what I'll do is quickly to set the context in place, and what I will try to do is not make the topic look very cliched into, we all know that yes, engagement is important, etc., etc. We'll go into some specifics. So let me start with you, Archana. If you can talk about what industry do you represent, and what is one of the biggest shifts that you've seen in your industry and in your company that is leading to the need of happier places more stark now?
Thanks, Vibhooti. That's a great question to start with. Good morning, everyone, and happy to take the first question of the first panel of the day. I work with Sandoz. Sandoz is the world's leading generic healthcare provider, and I'm very proud to represent them this morning. I've been in the healthcare industry for over a decade now. Prior to that, I was with one of the companies Vibhooti named, Deloitte, which I loved being with. And I started out as a medical transcriptionist, so healthcare has been a significant part of my life. One transformation I've seen in the healthcare industry is the speak up culture, as we call it. So in the past, you might have heard about examples where the operation was successful but the patient died, because along with the doctor, there is this team of people working who are really scared to tell the doctor you left the scissors inside the body when you were doing a surgery, right? So healthcare as an industry has evolved a lot, because innovation in healthcare is even more precision making today than any other industry. Just look at how your model of healthcare today is. You might just book an appointment on your phone. You might approach a doctor who's a lot more friendlier to you than a doctor you saw a decade ago. Your pills, your healthcare systems, the medicines that are reaching you are far more advanced than the healthcare systems of 10 years ago. So how are these innovations taking place? Innovations come from happy people. They come from people who feel a sense of belonging and contribution to organizations. So there are many examples, and maybe one I'll quote this morning is Zolgensma. Has any one of you heard of this product? So this is a product coming from Novartis. Sandoz spun off from Novartis a couple of years ago. And Novartis is an innovator healthcare company. We can spend another day talking about the difference in innovator and generic healthcare providers. But some of you who follow the game will understand what I'm talking about. Now, in 2018, Novartis acquired a healthcare company called Avexis, who were focused on cell and gene therapies. This is a very, very niche way of treating devastating diseases like spinal muscular atrophy. And this acquisition made a transformation in healthcare possible with cell and gene therapies and treatment for a disease as devastating as spinal muscular atrophy. So recognizing that there is potential, giving people that opportunity to speak up, to contribute, rather than seeing them as industry line workers, just follow the protocol, just get done with the SOP. That's the biggest transformation I've experienced in healthcare over the last decade.
Wonderful. So what I pick up from you is healthcare, of course, addressing the needs of our populations, and innovation being key. Great. Thank you. Aditya, may I come to you for this question?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Aditya, Sareen from Tata Power. I represent India's largest private power, integrated power company. And as I speak to you today, we're just 114 years young as an organization. And I incidentally completed almost about 11 years in Tata Power. The industry per se, the power sector, has undergone a lot of transformation over the last decade, and I'm so happy that I've been part of this journey as, as part of the people that are driving this journey within the organization. In fact, in some of our narratives that we give in campuses, one of my team manages the campus and cadre relations, is that power is what perhaps IT was in the early 90s and what perhaps telecom was in the early 2000s. And the reason I say this is, look at the kind of state of privatization happening in the way power is distributed. You see a great case in point in the way Delhi happened. And I'm a Delhiite, moved to Mumbai some 14 years back. So you see how Delhi has emerged from the way there was a state-run power distribution company to now the way power is happening. Soon you will all realize that you may be able to choose your power provider, which means in the same very hall, Mr. Emmanuel David and I were discussing in the morning, some 15 years back, I was in a different company along with him, and we were talking about strategy about telecom. And at that time, your mobile numbers were locked on your phones, CDMA, right? And today you can port your number remains the same, however your provider can change. Imagine the same thing happening with the power sector when you can actually decide who supplies power to your home. That is one part. The next is how power is generated from a fossil fuel based generation, which was primarily driving the way power was generated, to today using the Lord's sun and getting everything from renewables and green power has become a conscious call for sustainability across the globe. Why only India? The third is allied and value-added services like EV charging systems, battery storage, round-the-clock aspects, rooftop solar, and so on and so forth. So the reason I gave this long narrative is that what primarily was a B2B organization or a B2B industry is today a hardcore B2C, perhaps soon a D2C organization. And therefore, what changed in the power sector is from technology specialists, engineers who think in the line of operations and maintenance. We're now a set of people that think customer first, that think data, that think technology, that think innovation, think how AI can be used in the areas of power generation, transmission, distribution, and so on and so forth. And therefore, the mix in the workforce are people that come from outside the power sector also. The mix in the workforce is people that come from hardcore sales and customer service organizations. So look at that transformation from a primary generation company, a Genco, to what is called a power, value chain. The next thing that we saw in the industry is the onset of a lot of renewable companies, a lot of renewable players, because renewables is the name of the game today as we speak. So that's the mushrooming of large companies. Therefore, a lot of module manufacturing plants being set up in India towards the southern part of India. The government having a lot of policies that are powering the power sector. Now, why am I saying all this? And because the workforce is expanding. When I joined Tata Power in 2014, we were about some 3,000 odd people. Today, we're 25,000 employees in the company, and I'm only talking about on-roll employees. We acquired the state of Odisha, the entire state of Odisha for power distribution in the peak of COVID. And our people traveled from Delhi, from Mumbai, from Ajmer to Odisha to take over the operations when the entire country and the world was sitting at home and working from home. So their well-being, their engagement, their happiness is extremely critical for us. And how do we do it? We do it because we are a set of purposeful people. We are passionate about what we do. We are passionate to bring power to your house. We're passionate to bring light to your lives. We are passionate with the invisible goodness that we all create. So that's a overarching theme. But we do have specific ways and means to ensure that there's well-being happening, there's happiness happening, there's oneness, there's growth, there's sustainability, and a lot of this. And I think as we segue into the next set of conversation, I will bring out certain aspects here. We also are a panel of people that start with the reverse order. We start with making the audiences speak. So we did that with you, and I think you've been fantastic audiences. Lovely being with you, and I think we're looking forward to a greater discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Aditya. So, what I pick up from what you said is that your organization is pivoting from just a B2B to a B2C, which makes people to be the center of relationships that is that is going to help your business be built on, and employees being happy will make sure that business becomes better. Great. Rishu, may I come to you for this?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. So I represent DeHaat. DeHaat is today, one of the largest agri-tech firms. We are trying to build a full-stack organization where we provide solutions to the entire agriculture community, which includes all sort of inputs to farmers. Could be seeds, fertilizers, tools and machinery, a line of credit. We geotag their farms. We provide drone services, and on the output side, we procure from farmers and ensure that they get a great market for their crop. So I was very, it was very interesting when I was hearing my co-panelists. So yesterday we had our engagement scores out, and the partner who's been doing this for us said that you have a very unique proposition in your company. So our scores, thankfully have been going, on an upward trend year on year. And one of the highest scores that we get, so this year we got a score of about 92% on one of the parameters, which was pride. That I'm really proud to be working with the company, very proud to be associated with the kind of work that I'm doing, very proud about the impact that I'm creating. So they said, there are very few companies who get employees to actually live their purpose and dreams. So agreeing to what the co-panelists said, I think one of the biggest changes that I've seen in the recent years is that employees are very mindful of the amount of time that they're spending at work. And they want to ensure that that time aligns with their personal goals. So the professional goal, if it is very, very close to their personal goals, really helps them to be, to live a more holistic life and to be happy. I was thinking about that role, Chief Happiness Officer, and I was thinking about the earlier panelists who spoke about employability. So, happiness like employability is something that comes from within, right? And, we are all trying to create environments where people can thrive, where they can be their best, and, where they always feel that their bucket is full. And that actually, while I know it's called the Chief Happiness Officer, but it's a big accountability as compared to being a crown. And I feel something that's working for DeHaat is, number one, of course, the purpose that we are, trying to serve. We are trying to make an impact in lives of millions of farmers. The second thing that works for us beautifully is, the amount of listening that we do in our organization. I think there is a conscious effort, and this also comes from the nature of our business. Our customers or the end person that we are trying to impact are people who are quite risk averse. They are people who have, learned their craft from centuries, and who know more about farming than we will ever know. And to understand them and to help them, use new technology to disrupt, their ways of doing things requires a lot of patience and respect. And I think that is something that we channel internally in our culture. There are a lot of forums of listening, understanding what's happening on the ground. There's also a lot of time and patience given to ensure that we do things right and we are not pivoting all the time. And I think that helps people to be at peace.
Right.
and bring their best selves to work.
Right. Thank you. And I represent Lenovo, which is a technology company. And we are not just in the business of using technology, but or AI for that matter. We are actually creating AI. I mean, we create the infrastructure needed for AI. And for us, I think one of the things that is working for us as a company is that we have such wonderful use cases of where we see our technology being used that it's eye-opening to us. Every day we hear of customers using our technology for solving medical problems that have not been solved for years, for solving traffic management problems in cities that are very, very crowded, etc. So that brings a bit of passion and meaning to work as well. Now, thank you, and I'm very, very happy to share this with the audience that all the industries and the companies are pivoting their work from just working for profits, but to working towards allowing passion and meaning to come in work, which is great to see. Now that's one side of the story, right? Let me also get the elephant in the room, which is that whenever there are now these surveys that are being done, happiness surveys or engagement surveys, of course we have some that are done in our organizations, but then there are also some which are done in public at large. And we see that about 60% of the people say that they are not engaged at work. About 50% people say that they are quiet quitting, which is a new trend and a new buzzword, right? And about 20% of them are loud quitting, right? And for those of you who do not know, quiet quitting is a concept where they say that, we will only, we are not engaged, so we will do the minimal at work. The other corresponding trend to this is called #ActYourWage, which is, by the way, a super trend on platforms like TikTok, where they say that we are only going to work as far as we get the work done, what our salary is paying for, right? We don't want to do the work just for the heck of it. So what is it that is going on? What is it that employees you see are expecting differently, which is featuring into this sort of, I'm not pinpointing towards a particular company. We might be having, great engagement scores internally, but the mood at large is that something has changed, right? And of course, this sort of peaked after COVID, right? What are some of the main things that you have seen why this possibly could be happening in your organizations, for example?
So I have a situation at hand where in Tata Power we have almost 4 generations working together. And by the way, in Tata Power we have a 5th generation employee also that works with us. So we have a set of people that are where we have purposeful families. The families have been working with us. I would not say that there's a problem, but I definitely would say that there's a important set of feelers that we've been getting, and I think the industry at large. COVID was a big eye-opener. I think it brought health and well-being at the forefront of every employee and every family, right? And I think that's a no-brainer. People are aware of that. The second, people had enough time to look at value and purpose congruence between self and the organization. And I quite like what you said about act your wage, etc. I think people, because they had time and because they were all together and because they were all facing what could be called the rarest of the rare calamity, they were all trying to understand and find meaning in life together. And I'm going to segue into the organization in just a couple of seconds. The third is the onset of the Gen Z, the millennial and Gen Zs, where perhaps the way they think and the way they want to be managed is drastically different from the way the people that are leading and managing them manage. So suddenly you have a lot of things that came together, and to Mr. David, it was perhaps the time of disruption. To blame it on education, which is fast-paced, to blame it on purchasing power, to blame it on being everything available at the click of a button. I think a lot of things happened, ladies and gentlemen, in the last 3 to 4 years. And therefore, when all this happened, expectations of employees changed, But I'm glad to say that people in this room and those watching us online or those on the way still, trying to manage the Gurgaon Delhi traffic, actually acted swiftly. They acted swiftly by understanding that this change is here to stay. It's right there. And I think HR colleagues, CXOs, functional leaders took cognizance and started taking action. I'll bring you the action that we took instead of focusing on the problem. We realized that people have passions that are forgotten. And we therefore started something called Forgotten Passions. Now, that means if you wanted to just, learn to play the guitar, don't worry, we have you covered. We will sponsor you, provided you take the first step. Yeah? You wanted to learn gardening, or you wanted to, nurture your hobby of gardening, we have you covered. We will get you as a close group of people who perhaps can share this passion and maybe share good practices. That said, we also realized that because our people were working round the clock, ladies and gentlemen, in the field to get power to you, we wanted them to feel cared for. So our managing director himself was on field talking to these people on the ground. No better than acknowledging their contribution by being with them on the ground and not doing a webinar to say we care for you, but going to the plant and saying, I care for you, we all care for you. The third thing that we did is that we realized that we need a very, very focused approach to health and wellness, and therefore we created our Fuller Life program. The Fuller Life program is not only about health and wellness. It's about enabling you to achieve whatever you'd like to do, professionally and personally. So, and then many such things, connects, etc. But what I'm trying to draw attention to is that when people's expectations changed because of reasons that we've discussed, organizations like ours and all of yours acted swiftly. And each one of us in this room, I'm sure, has not one but many such instances where we've gone out of the framework, tried to adapt, and tried to get people in this. But one of the most important learnings for us was, and I think I agree with what you said, we listened. We listened to people. A basic check-in call saying, hey, how are you doing? I'm concerned about you, was a very big motivator. The youngsters also, by the way, there's a lot of bad mouthing about Gen Zs, they do this and they do that. It's actually not that way. We're not able to understand perhaps, or not listening enough, or listening enough, but then using our lens of Gen X, Gen Y, whatever generation you belong to. I think most of the people in this room are for 50, under 50, so they will be under 50. So you can look at which generation you fall into, but trying to manage them with the lens that you were being managed or you want to manage. So I think that's where we were, but a lot of action has happened on ground. Happy to get to understand from other panelists.
Very nice, and thank you, Aditya. So what I'm hearing from both Rishu and you say is that you have focused a lot on listening. Let me come to the question of, have the ways of listening changed? I mean, we have traditionally been grown up in an environment where we used to have an annual engagement survey, right? Is that still or the trend, or have you evolved your ways of listening? Rishu.
Absolutely, they've completely changed, I feel. Listening to somebody once a year is just too less. So there are various forums that work for us at DeHaat, and I would want to share a couple of them. Some of them are very, very low investment. So we have roughly today about 2,000 people spread across the country, and they are sometimes in districts where there are just one or two people in one district, and maybe too far away from their HR, too far away from their manager. So how do we ensure that our culture, our values percolate to them every day? So apart from, of course, using a lot of technology to ensure that all communication flows to them, they feel connected through our apps and through our network of modules that we've created. There's also a simple tool that we've deployed, which is a listening tool, which is a chatbot that reaches out to people, based on their career journey with DeHaat. So if you've just joined, the tool will reach out to you every 15 days. If you've spent a year, then it will reach out to you every quarter. If you spend 3 years, then maybe every 6 months. that gives us a continued sense of understanding on how the person is doing, and it also helps us understand what is it that that particular person needs to know. For example, our HR teams have regular cohort calls or meetings, on ground huddles that they do. But often, people get missed out on those meetings, or maybe, people are not comfortable speaking up in a group. So these one-on-one connects help us to understand, okay, what is it that this particular person needs, and we can quickly solve it for them. The other thing, I think, which works immensely for us, and I completely agree with what he said, is having a leadership team on ground. So there is, we plan our travel and our visits very, very carefully. Even if, there's a town hall, we ensure that all of us are kind of spread out and taking that from different locations. So that people know, yes, that this town hall is not happening from, let's say, the headquarters, but, the leaders are amongst us in the field, and some of them are speaking from there. So, how we ensure that there is a mix of both physical and digital touch point. And of course, one of the things which comes as a stress point, so apart from all the good things that come out of the survey, one of the things that has been coming as a stress point year on year is the happiness of the middle management. I feel they are amongst the most stressed layer today, and their scores are something that we are always worried about, because a lot of them, a lot of young people suddenly became managers after the entire workforce structure changed post-COVID. And so we are trying to ensure that they have a lot of help. Especially in technology, I don't know if all of you have experienced this. In our technology team, I often get a lot of people coming to me and saying that, can you reverse my promotion? And, can I go back to an IC role? And I'm not wanting to do this team lead role. Right. So, there is, and we understand, the complexity that comes in. So there are a lot of programs that we're running to help managers, lead better, and also treat them as humans. We know that they're doing this, a lot of them are doing this for the first time, so they will make mistakes. And that's something that we're focusing on.
Very nice. So again, what's coming to light is that the involvement of leadership is becoming absolutely critical. It's not just a good to have, but actually change happens with them in picture. And secondly, managers are the ones who have to hold the baton of making this work, because, to all of us, HR cannot be the only party involved or responsible for well-being and happiness at work. So that's very interesting. Archana, let me come to you for another point. Now, there was a recent survey done by Gallup, and again, Gallup is in the business of doing engagement surveys, and they said that the maximum engagement boost comes in when employees are working from home or off-site at least 60% of times, right? That's what the survey is saying. That's what employees are saying, let's say, right? Now, and organizations, of course, could have different priorities in wanting people to come back to work. What is your strategy, your organization strategy of work from home, hybrid, or work from office? And how do you engage people who are distributed?
Thanks, Vibhooti. Again, excellent question. So this trend that you're talking about, what Gallup reported out, again, is a post-COVID trend. If you go back to the pre-COVID days, none of us in this room could have imagined a life where you're sitting at home for longer than a day or two. Even the best companies that were awarded or called out were the ones who gave a 60-day work from home policy in a year. So that was celebrated in itself. And today, many companies don't even care or count, right? I'm proud to say we are one of them. We do care, we do count, but not to a point where we track or we ask people to report out. So Sandoz follows a hybrid working culture where we expect employees to be in the office 50% of their time, but it is a very autonomous way of deploying that. What does that mean? So we don't track, has this employee been seen in the office 50% of time? The accountability of that lies with the manager and the team. So a team can speak up to the manager if they observe bias in it, they figure a way of working, and then it is up to them. So what you said is right. So I think the future role of HR would be how can they become irrelevant sooner with their policies. The more they are pushing their way into it, that's the pressure the department is inculcating. They need to show the organization a way of future. The way of working with that future lies with the manager, with the associates. The concept of is it really a people manager for future again came from industrialization. Today you may not need a manager. Many companies have moved to calling these people counselors, coaches, whatever you might want to call them, because there's nothing to manage, especially in Gen Z is the point you called out. Self-managed workers are contributing more than somebody who's managed by someone. So our strategy is that. Now, just another important perspective there is for companies who are starting out young on these surveys on concepts of working from home, and trying to figure their way out. What is the balance? How much to track, what not to track? Of course, you might be running those surveys. So these days, the listening trend is more about employees are looking for, are you just listening for the sake of listening? Like you have to be there, you have to make the industry cut. So maybe many of us in this room have that survey. That is given, it's not a new trend. Are you listening to empathize? Like you come into the room and you just tell people, we hear you, this is bad, this is good, excellent. Or are you listening to respond? Are you going back to them quarter on quarter, year on year to say, you said these 3 things last year, these 2 things, excellent points, we still have time. Here's one thing we've transformed the way we do and it's coming from you. So work from home is such a trend. So if you're creating a trend out of it, it has to come back from what people want to do. So one of the things we did to champion this way of working is a culture ambassador network. So I think you made an excellent point in terms of the pressure on the middle management. What all will a manager do? It's a sandwich situation. You can convert it to a neurotransmitter situation, right? Give them the power. They have the network of the top, of the on-ground situation. Now to transfer that, we said the culture ambassadors are ones from the grassroots level. So they are our culture champions. They are dictating the culture of the organization. The managers are enabling that. The leadership is endorsing or supporting that. If culture is coming top down, you will always experience the employee grudge of saying, that's not what I want. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting so much of money into it? If it comes bottom up, then it is coming from what is the underlying cause of that score or that parameter that has come up. So linking it back to the work from home, it's one of those trends that we are addressing.
Another talk of the town is burnout and stress, you know, and I'm since the topic is about positive culture, I can't help but look at, you know, what is the problems that we are getting at hand, right? And I mean, there was a social media furore about some leaders expecting our, population to work a certain number of hours a day. Now, of course, there is a concept of productivity, right? But what we are discussing here in this room is that work is no longer about productivity. It is about growth. It is about care. That is what people now come to work for. And the topic of burnout and stress is, I feel, you know, with the kind of conversations that we have when we figure out that employees are burnt out or stressed, it's mostly about advocating boundaries at work, right? And unfortunately, this is not a skill that any of us have picked up or been taught in school, college, etc. And, you know, failure to do that impacts us, impacts the organization, impacts everybody at large, right? So my question to you, Aditya, is that as HR leaders, what can we do to facilitate this softer understanding that boundaries are important at work, both for employees who are expected to work and for managers who put that pressure to work?
Excellent question. Thanks for this one. Unfortunately, there's no training of how to be a good manager, except for those standalone, managerial effectiveness trainings. The problem is that we tend to manage our, teams the way perhaps we've been managed, or the way perhaps we've seen people who we want to emulate managing people. Now the conundrum there is that the people who we are trying to manage are a different set of people. And therefore what we are trying to look at and, kind of action, there's a huge gap there. And therefore people who have this habit of saying, I want it now, where are you, question mark, why is it not done, etc., they're getting into the zone of discomfort for the recipient. Now, by the way, both these people, the recipient and the person who's emanating it, are right at their own levels. Because this person is used to not seeing his wife on a Sunday also. Yeah, there's some humor in the room. And this person has been groomed that way. That's it, period. And therefore, he expects or she expects that you will not see your partner also on a Sunday. Now, that's not the way it is. This particular youngster now wants to swim on a Sunday, wants to go horse ride on a Sunday, wants to go shop on a Sunday, wants to take the pet on a stroll, and at that time this person wants you to look at your wife and not intrude into this person's life. But then you being you, whoever you are, you will definitely nag him or her and say, I want this now. So the point to note is, where is urgency going to stop? And the aspect to therefore drive home is, what is urgent for you, is it urgent for the other person? And perhaps defining urgency is a need of the hour. Second, is the aspect of giving people some space for, first of all, aligning or setting their own priorities. If I was to thrust my priorities on you, there would definitely be some commotion, perhaps lead to burnout and stress. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 is the fact that I work with Gen Zs, I work with multiple other generations as well. Everybody is responsible. Let's go back to the basics of the OB theories of everybody is good. X or Y, I'm not sure, that you can figure out, but we are assuming that they're not. Yeah. And therefore, I have had instances where people have gone out of their way to ensure things are done if you show them the impact and the purpose behind that. And therefore, I think if there's one need of the hour, and by the way, the poor middle manager, oh my God, don't even ask about him or her. The sandwich person that he or she is, can't see the wife or spouse 7 days, has to see the boss every time, has to see the juniors every time, and look at all this is a complex situation with no formal education in this. So I think if we want to look at how people should be managed, it's now, before this burnout becomes a trend, and we will see a situation where there could be mass exits and people can, and now information travels fast. Yeah, perhaps the color of my tie would be on social media faster than my next word. And therefore the way you manage will be outside in the open before even you realize what have you done. So being mindful of the way you're coming across, being mindful of the expectations of the other person, and knowing that this generation is not that regimented. It is not, and that's the fact. I mean, I remember my mom and dad telling me, this is the way you're going to have a haircut, and I said, okay. That is centuries ago. I mean, if I try doing that with my pet barks on me saying, how are you telling me this? I'm a Gen Z pet, I will not do this. So, and we're trying to regiment people who are mature professionals, so it wouldn't work. And then I think my humble submission, and that's what I practice, I'm going to be specific. You mentioned to us in the group that be specific, so here's specificity, that I try to understand the other person's perspective. And yes, sometimes you have to wear the manager hat and you have to push back. Also, please, for all those who are listening and watching, please also be reasonable to your managers. Yes. My request, I mean, I'm representing the Manager Society of India, if there's anything that exists here, is that please also understand that we also come from some logic of chain of command, and we are not doing it because we don't like you. We also like you very much, but we have to be liked up as well, right? So please understand that we will not cause unnecessary discomfort to you, but you also have to be accommodating and adaptive, and perhaps, that's how this handshake will work. So if I could add some humor, that was perhaps my intention, and if I could draw some learnings, that's on you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just on time.
No, this doesn't bite. It doesn't bite. Doesn't bite. It's just a poor LED that's been put there. It doesn't do anything. After 5 seconds, it'll still be the same. Over to you.
I think the labor code is going to help most the formalization of workforce, and what we were till now concentrating so many of our HR efforts only towards the white collar. I think this will bring some more standardization of HR processes to the rest of the workforce as well. Well, thank you so much, everybody, panelists, for your great thoughts. And what I am taking away from here is the importance of passion, meaning, listening closely, being close to where the employees are thinking, and not generalizing. But actually, looking at things from a more individual perspective to see what is lacking and what we need to fix. So let's hope we've picked up some good pointers on how we need to hear and how we need to heal our organizations so that they become the happier workplaces of tomorrow. Thank you so much.